If you wish to see the completed film, become a patron, receive regular updates, and comment on the film as it's being made. As little as $1 enough a month to help, or send a one-time payment via PayPal. Links are in the description.
Something else began to happen as we moved into the 2000s. By 2010, the games press was starting to fill up with ideology and snooty judgment.
It's the curse of the game developer, right? It makes it almost impossible to appreciate games because you just analyze everything and you see the little mistakes they made. I would have made this differently and blah blah blah. But I met all the IGF guys last year. I met Derek Yu and Jonathan Mack, and it was such an eye-opening experience. Like, really? You're like one guy and you're making this game and it's awesome? That wasn't something I was necessarily aware of, this whole indie scene.
Corruption and grubbiness was the status quo when it came to the big games companies and the media. But there was a new movement of independent and small-scale games production that promised to be something different.
Basically, everybody knows everybody and we're all, super friendly.
I want to get through at least 3 of our 5 examples. So can we get another example succinctly and actually spin off more conversation from it?
If it's me, yeah. I can get it fast. Which one do you want?
Oh, really? The gauntlet has been thrown down.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Patricia Hernandez wrote 6 pieces that were favorable to an indie developer.
To a what developer?
An independent developer.
Okay.
An independent developer is someone who makes games without the financial support of like a large company.
Let's take a look at just a fraction of the hundreds of exciting new games from independent developers that are coming soon to Xbox One.
To start with, indie just meant independent. That was down to small companies and individual game creators selling their material online themselves or via Steam and other marketplaces. This was possibly the biggest and most exciting change in games development since the bedroom programmer era of the ZX Spectrum and Commodore 64.
Like Derek, right?
Yes.
Doesn't have a huge corporate board behind him, goes off.
He's a free artist. He has his vision.
Okay.
He's not restricted.
And just to be clear, in the gaming culture, what are the status of indie game developers? Are they considered minor league or like heroes or what?
Well, it's as Derek would probably tell you, it's kind of both.
The games media, populated with frustrated people who wanted to be real writers and wanted what they did to mean something, to them, this was a godsend.
What's great about indies is that they don't have the same money at stake, so that gives them the flexibility to really, really try new things.
Indie video games are really helping, I think, to push the boundaries of game design.
Indies are pretty much the saviors of video games.
I mean, recently indies have gotten a lot of attention, but there's a lot of people who've been working at it for a long time and just don't seem to get any spotlight. And that's really mainly because of these conflicts of interest.
Would maintaining a friendship with a journalistic source outside of the field be a breach of journalism ethics?
And if it's not a breach of journalism ethics, you are walking a very fine line.
But in the case of Patricia Hernandez, she had written a piece of a person who we found was her close friend and was also her roommate. Now, you'll have to forgive me because I don't have much journalism experience, but I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to promote your roommate.
Now, what about being roommates with a potential source?
I was that's even worse.
Rather than meaning independent, indie started to mean progressive or right on, sometimes to an absurd degree.
Sound Self is a game, but it's not really a game.
Yeah, the latter is right. It's not a game.
It's a really powerful experience. It's just difficult as fuck to describe.
Well, some people online describe it as a retard simulator.
I asked Stephen Totillo, the editor of Kotaku, about this. He did respond, but he said it was, quote, off the record, not to be posted, quoted, or shared. Patricia had messed up in writing about some friends and former housemates without always acknowledging they were friends or former housemates. She thought some of it was obvious and other cases didn't think it was relevant. Her passion for covering interesting games, big and small, should be obvious to anyone who regularly reads Kotaku. And I don't think at all she was ever plugging work she didn't think was cool. But disclosure is good to ward off even the appearance of impropriety.
Indie games were being treated like the second coming. Their creators were being held up as moral paragons.
I'm on the line. Me. Like my name, my career. This is my identity. It's Fez. I'm Guy making Fez.
You are the prime example of what not to be within the entertainment field, let alone within the game development field.
You are the guys who did Indie Games the movie, and some of you looked relatively normal in it. One of you looked like a total tosspot in it.
But you can't have it both ways. You're successful game designers, you're
Indie game designers, hurrah, good for you, you fucking hipsters.
You shit on your fans who were waiting for Fez 2. You shit on the development team that was making it. You ran with the money. You're telling everybody that's helped made your product a success that they all owe you now.
When the press then come to you and say, oh, this is something that's pertinent to the indie scene, and they are, you know, supposedly these pioneers, don't get fucking snicky about it, all right?
And this next one happened a bit later. Having seen these wankers over and over again bitch and moan, Phil Fish in particular, and then a little later after another guy talks, he's a fucking asshole most of the time.
You shit on an entire community of video game developers.
What do you think about the recently Japanese game?
They suck. And so this is what Fish said in response to Beer's angry rant. Hey fuckface, the thing with us tosspots, hipsters, is that we're not beholden to media leeches like you. And you're right, we're very successful. And we're not going anywhere. Get used to it, you middle-aged parasite. Compare your life to mine and then kill yourself.
Compare your lives to mine and then kill yourselves.
Lynn and Ren, some background. So basically, this is another example. These guys picked out this example, and I went try to get to the source, where the editor-in-chief is admitting that something was wrong. However, there are nuances in that response that I wanted you guys to address.
Well, I was going to say, if I have a reporter and they want to cover a restaurant, or we're doing an investigation on the restaurant's, I don't know, cleanliness. If they have any ownership, or their friend has any ownership of that restaurant or any connection, they absolutely would not work on that. Not only would they not work on it, but
it's a nice feeling.
Journalists aren't used to applause.
Suddenly, game sites were flush with politicized game reporting, and this began to bleed into reviews of mainstream games. Suddenly, points were being lost for sexualized design or failure to include minorities.
There's a cutscene which displays one of the most violent things I've ever seen in a video game. It's Kratos boot stomping a Fury's face in. While the image of a woman's face being kicked in is borderline, the overall dark nastiness of the franchise and its lack of gender roles outside of the famous sex scenes kept it just inside a tonal context. But following the conclusion of the cutscenes, you get a trophy. This one. This gut punch of misogyny irredeemably sours this game and is shocking that such a talented developer would traffic in such a contemptible attitude.
Gamers, who mainly didn't care, or at least didn't think this was the most important thing, were left asking an important question. Yeah, okay, but is the game any good?
Well, that was a fun week. Yeah, I know some of you out there were hoping that I might be responding to the responses after my God of War review, but I'm just kind of done with it. The past few days has been a Lewis Carroll-like journey into the gaping maw of a large cross-section of the English-speaking world. And really it comes to me that there are certain social pathologies that can't be debated. And I really don't feel like getting any more blood money off of something that was pretty noxious that was happening in the comments down below. So you guys go have your fun. I'm going to move on.
So even a disclosure in that instance, if she were to disclose at the beginning, I don't think that it would really help, because you get through the entire article and then oh yeah, this game was by my best friend.
If it was me, I wouldn't have her involved with that at all because of the relationship. But let's say that even if someone else is writing about it, I would say maybe there could be talk, and I would consider, do you disclose somewhere in the article that someone on your staff has a close relationship with this person? I think that might be
I think I wish that you were involved in journalism. It would make things a lot easier.
All the while, more and more coverage was being given to non-games.
But there is one game I do want to separate from the group, which I want to declare my favorite game of 2013, because after playing it, I couldn't get it out of my head. And that game is Gone Home. This game, with a simple concept, a young lady in the 90s has returned home from traveling abroad to a house you're not familiar with and you don't know where your family is.
The storytelling and voice acting in the game are absolutely superb, and the gameplay has this really easy flow that makes each move seem organic.
There's no explicit goal, there's no combat, and there's no one else in this house.
Gone Home's detractors will cry that this isn't really a game.
This game, and a precious few others, take a bold, powerful step in trying to reclaim a relatable humanity in video game characters, and they do so by insisting that they're as boring and as normal and as real as anyone else.
The term walking simulator has become popular over the past few years, used to pejoratively describe a certain style of game. Games like Dear Esther, Gone Home, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, narrative-driven exploration games in which your interaction almost entirely consists of walking and experiencing a story unfold.
The audacity of going for something like this with such a small but highly accomplished team is something that deserves so much praise and so much reward. And once again, no shooting, no violence, really no nothing.
Walking simulators have always felt for me like a method of storytelling only slightly better than trying to read a book that's been glued to the side of a nervous gazelle, but maybe that's just the nihilist hardcore gamer talking who hasn't had a good day if he hasn't died by proxy at least 5 times.
Any challenge or question to this emerging order was, of course, dismissed as bigotry. Gamers began to build up a steam of resentment and annoyance at being talked down to, told off, judged, and not being told what they needed to know. Whether the game was any good or not. Being independent should mean just that, not exchanging a set of commercial restrictions for an even harsher set of political demands. The point of being indie should be to be independent and free.
All of the rumors and conspiracy theories that have been going around for ages about the industry, I will tell you that the reality is far worse. This is an industry full of greedy, social lunatics. They're all fucking crazy, greedy, selfish people who aren't knowingly doing anything bad, but are simply awful. Awful and void of any artistic value.
I would like you to picture the music industry where nobody makes music and all they do is talk about sexism.
You know, it's like holding up a paper airplane and running with it. And the fun part is letting go and seeing where it goes. And who doesn't want to run underneath that plane?
Run underneath this plane, Ben, you fucking bag of shit. You're the cancer of video game journalism.